Welcome to the first episode of the fourth season of Born in Trouble. I'm your host, John X, bringing you the best in mid grade conversation all throughout the United States of America. Hey, y'all, how y'all feeling tonight? This is me, John X, here on Born in Trouble. Special Wednesday episode. I wasn't able to get the episode in yesterday because of the fact that I had other things going on in the home. Wasn't able to access the studio. It's quite a long thing, but it's not really relevant to anything that's going on right now. Right now, what's going on is Born in Trouble, the fourth season. So, funny thing is that last week when I was on the episode with my illustrious brother in arms there, Mr. Grant Lancaster from Detroit, Michigan. Big shout out to you, Grant. We were beginning the show and we recognized that this was actually the fourth season. We had completely and totally flipped over the date, which was actually sometime in March. So, what I decided to do was I decided to hit the reset button and start from scratch and just make this the first episode of Born in Trouble this year. So this is how we actually getting down today. We're making it happen this way. And I don't know if you listened to the show, but the last couple of weeks, we've had a lot of guests that have come on from an app that used to be known as Wisdom, but now is changed over to something completely different. I don't want to advertise the app, but on that app, we used to all get on there and we used to run our own shows and just basically riff and go on for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, whatever it was. And that was really the beginning of where I met some of the great guests that you guys have gotten to listen to the last couple of weeks, Mr. Andrew Johnson, Chocolate Yoda, as well as Reggie Reg. Reg, big shout out to you in Ohio. Hope everything is going well. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to keep everything a buck and give the listeners of the Born in Trouble podcast a taste of what I used to do on the app as far as speaking, going on for an hours on my own myself. So that way you understand while I'm here, or at least you get an understanding of what the show is and what your boy John X is all about. So I decided to, with this reset of the fourth season, to run this episode Dolo. So if you're not familiar with that term, it's something we used to run in the 80s all the time, solo, dolo, all by myself. So this is what we're doing tonight. So big shout out. Big shout out to everybody who normally contributes to the show. Mr. Robert Brooks, of course, my Ace Boone Coon, and Mr. Gene Hopkins, of course. Another one of my Ace Boone Coons, Mr. Grant Lancaster, and all the great contributors that have been here on the show for the past 3 years that have kept it interesting and encouraged us to keep it going. So, first, what I'd like to talk about is where we're going in the future with Born in Trouble, which is very simple. We're not stopping. I am going to cut down the shows a little bit. Instead of every week, we're going to go 3 out of 4 weeks in the month. One of our great guests, Chocolate Yoda, who's a very intelligent brother who was on one of our last couple of shows. He's actually going to be joining the show on the last recording date of every month. So this is the 15th. The next time you'll see Chocolate Yoda is on the 29th. And that's in response to more political things, trying to keep us on track and not make us come out as being complete and total dummies. And the show is growing and it's adapting and it's changing. And I'd like to just move along with it and move with the tides. Anything that stays the same, stagnant, eventually will die. So that's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to keep the conversation lively and keep everything going. So these are some of the things you guys can look for from Born in Trouble in its fourth season. So now we're going to sit here and we're going to wonder, how am I going to keep this podcast going for almost an hour? which is what we normally did. And some a little background to myself. I've had my FCC license since 1986, actually 85. Haven't used it much. Now that we're on these new platforms, back then one of the things with the FCC was that you couldn't curse online. Fuck if that didn't go out the water. So I guess I'm pretty safe here, just riffing and running with whatever I want to talk about. And it's generally what I do. Another reason why I didn't want my boys on this podcast is because I might say some controversial things this evening, especially about the region called the Middle East and some of the other people. And I don't want any of them to catch any backlash. One of the reasons why I don't worry about this, and one of the reasons why it's very troubling to me, is because in my day job, I work in the real estate industry. I work with a lot of different people, and we've seen what has happened to people who have come out and spoken against what is going on in that area called Palestine. For the time being, Palestine, I should say, because we've seen the reports of in Canada and in the United States, there are actors working on behalf of the state of Israel who are actually already auctioning off the property that they haven't even rolled over yet and taking control of. It's to a certain extent a great big real estate scam that's really in its onset. And if you listen to the show on a normal basis, the first time that they had the event that happened in January 6th, and the response came on, our show was probably a few after that. And my response to that was that this is just the beginning. It's not going to end until that country is completely and totally owned by the people, the government known as Israel at this point in time. And I still stick to that. It's the one thing I said in the beginning. And anybody can be mad at that if they want to be mad at that. But if you studied the region, if you know anything about the Zionist people that actually are in control of that government, you would know that this is something that they've had planned for or in the works for a very long time. And it's got nothing to do with any type of attacks. I mean, can you necessarily believe that anything has happened in that area? Anything that's happened in that area has been controlled by one group or another. When I look at the IDF, what I see is a fully, strongly equipped army by the United States of America. And when I look at Hamas, it's like the equivalent of a bunch of guys throwing rocks. Because, and you can say that missiles are not rocks and how dare you, whatever, and people have passed away. But this is unfortunately what happens in the region. What makes me saddest about this region is that this is an area of the world where people used to go and worship all different types of religions: Christians, Muslims, Arabs, Jews, shared the land for decades, hell, centuries, if you really want to break it down. The people that are in control that have been granted familial control over the city of Jerusalem and some of the most, what is the word I'm looking for? Um, Respected spiritual places, Christian family. And when I sit there and I look at these things that are done in the name of God, I don't believe that anybody believes that anyone who really is truly a person of God believes that any of these things are happening in the will of God. If anything, it seems to be going in the opposite direction. And unfortunately, we're just sitting here watching it all play out. And the hard part about this for me is that even though I'm very close with my friend group is a very select group of people. Those are my tried and trues, my ace boons, the cats that I would walk through a fire for them and they would walk through a fire for me. That's how you get the title of being friend with me. You know, everyone else is their friendly acquaintances. And if you're a friendly acquaintance with me, that's not a bad place to be either, because I got your back too until you prove otherwise. So And there are a lot of people that I think of that are friendly acquaintances that actually belong to that particular group of people, the Jewish sect of people. And you have to understand that a lot of the religious things and a lot of the political things, they don't go hand in hand. I have seen many, 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 many rabbis and many, 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 many Jewish people condemning the actions of the government of Israel on the basis of humanitarian status, for whatever that means. Unfortunately, none of these people have the power to step in and get them to stop unaliving the number of people that they are unaliving right now. And at the same time, it's also a call for common sense. I've never seen a generation of people in my entire life. I've been here 50 plus years, and I've never seen a generation of people in my life that are so blissfully ignorant and so blissfully unaware and so blissfully devoid of any type of love in their hearts, any type of empathy in their hearts for other people and other groups of people. We are just as a society, we have this world, we have so much information and so little intelligence to go along with it. And I think that's part of the problem. I think this is what was predicted with computers in the very beginning, that anytime you have the opportunity to just Google an answer, it means that you don't have to retain it at all. And what we've learned over the past couple of years is not only have we been good at not learning things and being blissfully ignorant and coming up with snappy retorts as to why that blissful ignorance is a good thing, we've also come to the point where that information, that blissful ignorance, is actually what's looked for. It's actually more accepted, it's better accepted than actually the truth. And I just wonder, where's the connection to information and intelligence in a throwaway society? Because we have the connection to the information, which should mean that we should be more intelligent and move more intelligently. But we throw all these things away so easily. There's no culpability whatsoever. Before I came here, trying to get a little bit more juiced up, I was listening to my favorite app right now, which is TikTok. TikTok is really my favorite app. If you get a chance, follow me. I believe I'm John X829, because I'd really love to get into these conversations on TikTok. I kind of slept on it for a very long time. I wasn't really interested or involved in it because I saw TikTok as a place where, what I was told is, when I was setting up some of my cannabis businesses, that this was a good place for you to actually be selling your products and advertising your products. And what I've seen is that there are a lot of people that are basically advertising products and advertising themselves and points of view, because they have these things where you get these coins and you can actually pay your rent by being a TikTok influencer. And I think that's good. But I also think that the best thing about TikTok is it's the one place where the United States government does not have a hold on everything that you say and everything that you do. I had a YouTube channel when we first started Born in Trouble about 2 years ago, and I shut it down almost immediately because they actually censored me for something that was said. And I don't even remember what it was right now. It escapes me at this moment. But everything that I've learned throughout my life is that censorship is bad. There's nothing good about censorship. I don't care where it's coming from, left, right, middle, up above. I don't care. I just think it's a bad thing. And TikTok is one place where, as of right now, the government doesn't have control over it. It's not censoring everything that people are saying. So it's actually a place where people can go and give their opinions, for better or for worse. And for better or for worse really depends on what your scale is, what your belief system is. Some people, for better is like fantastic, and for another group of people, that for better is the worst possible thing in the world. It's horrible information, terrible. It's it's everything that's wrong with society. I'll give you a perfect example of what that is. There was that kicker yesterday. The one Harrison, I believe his name is Harrison. I had written it down somewhere. But anyway, he was at a college graduation ceremony, and he took that moment to take a stab at the sexual these the sexual male female dynamic in the United States as it is today, and state that and make such great statements as, my wife's life didn't begin until the day that she married me. This is when her life began. And a lot of you women, a lot of these women, I believe it was Assumption College that he was actually addressing. And they had spent, like, if you went there for 4 years, $142,000. And he was stating that the best thing that these women could do was find a man, get married, and become a homemaker. Now, whether or not I agree with that is a moot point. I don't agree with it. I believe that people should be married. I believe that couples should get together. They should raise their families together. Um, I don't believe in a lot of these things, this whole matriarchy thing where women can do it better. And the reason why is because, like, honestly, we're all just people. And if women want to sit around and pretend like they don't have any power over men whatsoever in this world in which we live, I mean, I don't know what to tell you, because women have always been great and powerful. I was watching a discussion today about men saying that women can't raise a son, can't raise a man to be a man. And to a certain extent, that's true. I don't understand how people believe that you're going to just come onto this earth now and you're going to change physiology. People are made up the way that they are. Women are naturally softer, men are naturally harder, more aggressive, sometimes overly aggressive, but also with women, sometimes overly soft. And some women are over aggressive and some men are overly soft. That's what the whole thing about dating was. I think that what we're doing nowadays on the internet is we're confusing what used to be solved in interaction, and we're trying to make it into some type of analytical conversation where we could actually make it make sense. Doesn't make any sense. That's the reason why this is why they have things like called you're equally vetted in a relationship. Because if you're equally vetted, you find a man who's stronger where you're weaker, and you find a woman who's stronger where you're weaker, and you kind of buttress each other up and you work together. But that's not what relationships are now. Relationships are now, what they are now is like they put this all the stuff into a regular box where a woman is either soft, pliable, and submissive at all periods in time, and that's how things work. And the men are either soft, submissive, and weak in all terms, and this is how it all works. But the truth of the matter is that the reason why a man and a woman both have a child together is because it really requires both of those people to raise that child properly. And sometimes that doesn't necessarily mean, especially today, I don't see how you could actually change it now. With all of these people, you have men and women that have grown up in households, and they have no idea what it's like to have a man in a household. Forget about leading the household, even in the household. They don't have any way of actually interacting with them in a positive manner. They don't have, and sometimes it's the same thing with women. If you had with a woman that's at home all the time, some of these people, they grew up as latchkey kids. Latchkey kids is what they used to call it when you would come home and you let yourself in and you watch yourself all day long, and then your mom comes home or your dad comes home and makes dinner. And This is what society was, a latchkey society. We don't have that anymore. We don't have that society anymore. What we have is we have a aggressive fighting society. Whereas, especially in the black community, I'm going to break this down to a black community because I'm a black person. I'm a black man. The only thing that people in the black community we used to have in the 60s is had Ungawa Black Power. They had the SNCC. You had the Nation of Islam. You had two forms of the Nation of Islam when Malcolm X broke off and he set his people up. You had the black churches that were working with families. You had Clan Watch. You had people that looked out for each other. There was that head nod actually meant something. And we fast forward to today, and the only thing that gets people interested is a rap battle where people are talking about the worst possible variations and type of personality traits of people that we are supposed to, or that this generation was supposed to admire musically at least. But the thing that brings you to the yard is the dissing of these people. How low can we bring each other down? How low can we shoot? How low can we shoot to keep each other down? And the reason why it's such a negative thing and why it's such a bad thing, it's not even so much about the knocking each other down and knocking each other back. That's only one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is that nobody black is making that money. You're not making that money. For all these people that we have in this community that you can name, producers, um, record executives, quote unquote record executives. We'll get to the most famous one in a minute, or the most famous two in a minute, that have been dragged through the mud. None of these people are running the labels. You still have people like Liar Cohen, who goes on a news show, and when they ask him, why are you promoting prostitution? Why are you promoting murder? Why are you promoting theft through your artist? Why are you promoting discord through your artist? And he says, well, that's what sells. That's what people want to hear. It's not what people always wanted to hear, because in the beginning of rap, Public Enemy, number one rap group, Native Tongues, number one rap group, African Bambaataa and them up in the Bronx. Big shout out to the Zulu Nation, always doing things. Hell, I went to high school. I went to junior high school with Eric Sermon. I've known this cat since 1982. And I sat there and I watched him say some of the most cohesive things on a podcast this week about the music industry and the music business and how bad it's going down. And part of that reason being is because when we were coming up, Eric Sermon and them, we would meet up at block parties. Y'all have block parties? You can't have block parties because they're getting shot up. Why are they getting shot up? Because of trifling behavior. Trifling behavior by who? Well, you could say these toxic men, but you could say these toxic men who are 17, 18, 16, 17, 18, 19-year olds that are living underneath the roofs of their mom. Is it the mom's fault that she can't control what's out there in the world, or is it the boy's fault because he's just naturally inherently evil, as one person that I just saw said about men, that men are inherently evil, but you're ignoring the half that you put into that. Can we try to do better? Is there a way that we can get better from out of this bad that we have right now? Because listen, shit is what they use for fertilizer. It's another word for shit, fertilizer. So I'm just saying, just give it some thought. Because it was so easy for them to get us here to this point. So easy. You had people that were pushing these different things. You had, women that were once queens and sought after became hoes and thoughts. And, they went along with it willingly. You know, I remember when I was a kid, there was one thing that was true about there was one thing that was really, really true about the world. And that was if the woman said it, it happened. When I wanted to go to parties, I wasn't trying to go to the parties where the cats with had the guns. And there were parties that you could go to where there weren't guns at the party. You go up in the club, you go up in the tunnel in the 1980s and 1990s, you might get hopped by 15 dudes if you did the wrong thing. But you better, and the only way that happens is if the 15 dudes you came with ain't paying attention. It's a different world. It was about getting together and getting to know you. It's about getting to know each other. And even with that standoff, there was a form and there was a measure of respect from people coming from one area to the next and everything. Now all we do is we just drag each other down. And it's a bad thing. And one thing about these rap battles, it was very clear to me that what happened with this rap thing and what's going on, a lot of this stuff is contrived. I know a lot of people were very up in arms about what was going on with Diddy. Um, I still can't call him Diddy. I've known of him at least since 1987. Our paths crossed first then down at Howard. And when I think of him, I think about Puff. And all I can say about him in that situation is that he's just a product of his environment. And all of these things that have happened over the past couple of weeks with him, I mean, I don't even knock him for it. Most of the stuff. The only thing you could say, people were actually cheering when they had this allegation of the 17-year-old who had flown in from Detroit. I don't know that story. What I do know is that another young lady was on the internet this week. Some famous chick, light skinned, semi famous. I'm old, so I'm not paying attention to what these 17 to 23-year-olds is doing and everything. I don't know your name for the most part. You got to do something that's really interesting in order for me to know your name. But apparently, she was somebody a lot of people knew. And she gave a hit list of all the people that she slept with. And one of the things that she said was that, you can't let all of these dudes know what your age is at the time when you're trying to sleep with them. If that ain't some shady, shisty shit, I don't know what the fuck is. Got so many questions. Nobody's asking her though, because she's beautiful and because she's famous. Maybe she's an actress, maybe she's a rapper or a singer, or whatever, but nobody's asking where her parents are. Nobody's asking that girl where her mama is. Where's your mama? Trying to tell you and explain to you how not to get with these men, these grown ass men. Of course, they're going after 18-year-olds. Have you seen the music business ever since ever? You've got rock artists and stars that are talking about they had full-blown relationships with 12, 13, 14-year-old white women, white artists, white women. This is what that world is. Is that right? Is it wrong? I'll tell you what it is. Honestly, what it is it's not your circle. It's not your cipher. It's not your life. And beyond the fact that it's thoroughly illegal, it's really not much of your business. A lot of these people, their parents, their rich parents, sign off on what they're doing. Give them the money. Let them go out. Do what they're doing. Is that right? Can we fix that with society? Can we fix those people? We can't fix none of that stuff. Can't fix none of it because that's a personal responsibility. That's up to the individual, your parents, to actually teach you that and understand. My daughter now is in her 20s and she had her stage where she liked her little boys and everything, and she liked these rappers or whatever, and she even went to a BET show one day and everything, but she had a thorough understanding of what it was like going backstage and what they were looking for and what it was about because I had that knowledge and I gave it to her beforehand. So what I'm saying about what this other dude is doing, what I'm saying about what this other dude is the thing with this other dude is that he's responsible for all of the things that he did that he forced upon people. But most of those parties were full of people who were having consensual sex, whether it was man on man, woman on woman, or sometimes a little bit of both in between. And whether you like it or not, that's actually the way it was. And I say this with the full understanding that yes, I was in a bad boy video because Craig Mack was my dude. No, I did not attend any of those freaky parties. Was never a part of it. But I recognize his right to actually have those freaky parties. How many houses are there out here on Long Island on a Friday or Saturday night that are full of freaks and full leather and whips and gear and doing whatever the hell it is that they want to do? Why is it that this is such a big thing? I can tell you why, because it's a bunch of famous people that are up there, and he probably taped them illegally, and that's really what the issue is. But at the end of the day, it doesn't have anything to do with anything that has to do with anything that's going to help us as a community to move forward or to move upward and outward. And on that, I'm going to leave that alone. And I am going to talk about something else. And I'm going to talk about the big R word, which is racism. But one of my favorite parts of the R word, which is economic racism. NPR had a report this week, or at least I don't know when it was posted, but I saw it this week. And it was about the US GDP. That's the gross something product. I forget what it is, but it's we since 2000 we have lost $16 trillion due to discrimination against African Americans. That's mostly been involved in education and access to business loans. And people say, "Oh, my stars and bars, how could that ever happen?" Well, it's very simple. As someone who is a lender and who did do mortgages, a lot of times you'll have someone who comes in with the exact same mortgage credit rating as the next person, say a 700 or a 720. And yet, when it would come back from the underwriter, for some reason, and it's not nowhere mentioned anywhere, but it's always easily found out. You can tell usually by the inflection of someone's voice, where they are, whatever it is. But equal, and it's been tested, it's been studied, you know, equal everything equal, equal assets, equal credit scores. For some reason, black guy gets denied, or they get or black woman female gets denied, or they get a higher rate than the white person does, or someone else. And it's the same thing across the board with minorities. And that practice, which allows people to stay on top, which allows certain groups of people to never open up that dream business that they want, has cost the United States $16 trillion over a 24-year period. $16 trillion. That's jobs that are not available to people. That is education that isn't available to people. So it got me thinking about, first of all, I have to let y'all know, like, I believe that anyone who believes in politics, Republicans, Democrats, whatever, I believe you're all chumps. I'm sorry, I just have to let you know, I believe you're all chumps. You've all been fooled for the most part, unless you're someone, if you're listening to the show, which I doubt, you listen to the show and you have $10 million. I believe that's where actual wealth in the United States of America actually begins. You've got $10 million and you're taking that money and you're putting it through the right systems and the right values and the right models and modules, then it may make sense for you to be a Republican or a Democrat, because you may want to keep that money flowing into these people, these normies, as Grant would say, the 85s, who really don't have any skin in the game, but identify with people who do. Okay. You don't have any skin in the game, but you identify with people who do. I believe that they're all suckers, because while you vote for one or you vote for the other, the train keeps rolling on down the track, getting closer and closer to your soon to be ran over dead carcass and body. And once that train has run over you, if you're lucky enough to still be alive, then the buzzards are going to come and they're going to peck your eyeballs out, and they're going to take whatever bones are left of you. There's a reason why they're taking Social Security and they're moving it towards 72. It's not because people have been proven to live older. As a matter of fact, after COVID, we had such a stark jump in the life expectancy that we actually lost like a year or two just over the course of the time of COVID. So it's not as if people are going to live longer and they're going to collect on that Social Security. That's not what it is. What it is the goal of this machine is to make sure that you never collect on Social Security. Never. So they push it out to 72 because someone has done an actuary that's told them from the year 71 to 72, X amount of people are dying off. And if they get to that 72, when you first retire from work, it's a known thing. For example, Charles Schultz, the writer of the Peanuts, he wrote his last comic on a Sunday and he died on Saturday and he died on a Sunday morning. People need purpose in life in order to live and to achieve many times, and to just have a reason to get up. And one of the things that you're not going to see with that now is you're not going to see those people. And the older you get, the less you important you become. And one of the reasons why I say that if you're a political person, you're an idiot. Let me give you a perfect example. Many people have mistaken me for a quote unquote Democrat. And after speaking to me, they find out that my policies and my beliefs and my thought system is actually closer to that of a conservative. The reason why the two twains never meet is because of something else that we're doing right now, which is trying to kill DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. The same thing, that same type of diversity and equity. Equity simply means all things being fair. If we had equity since 2000, we would have an additional 16 trillion flowing through the economy right now. So it makes you wonder. You have all these conversations about Trump, and that's one of the things that Chocolate Yoda is really great at, and that's one of the reasons why I'm really looking forward to having him on the show once a month. And the reason why is because most people don't understand the way that a lot of these things work and how they actually affect you. You just basically say these things and you think that it just means something different. Equity, diversity, equity, $16 trillion. Those are jobs. But the real thing with the United States of America, with too many people, and I'm not saying all people, but too many people, is their identity. And politics is all about identity. It's all about who you go to your barbecues with. There are so many times when I was driving out here on Long Island is Trump land. Okay. And during the election year, we would see like a whole bunch, even when Trump was president, we would see caravans of trucks and people just driving out east or driving to a different place. There'd be 40, 50, 60 cars with their flags and blasting their horns and yelling out their windows, Trump, Trump, Trump. And to bring it back to the beginning of the show, that's their block party. That's how they identify. They have these trucks that they can't afford, these houses that they can't afford, these debts that they can't afford, these policies that they're pushing that they believe in that don't benefit them. But what they know is that Trump tells them that you were not forgotten. You are not going to be replaced. So they love him. So they identify with this philosophy. And what these people have done is, between the Democrats and the Republicans, is that they've split these two issues down the middle. So they give you some things that are good on one side, some things that are good on the other side, and never sell the two twains meet. If you're a conservative and you vote for anything that is Democratic, you will not have a seat. And when you look at all of these things, and what is the last thing about all of these elected officials in these places? The one group that you better not say anything about, you better not say anything about Israel. Because if you say anything about Israel, the JDL and that lobby, they're going to get in there and they're going to make sure that you don't get your seat. They're going to defund you. They're going to primary you. And if you do get to keep your seat, they're going to make sure that you go back there and you are completely and totally broke. Now, is that necessarily a bad thing for someone who works for the government and quote unquote is supposed to be working for the people? I don't think it's a bad thing if you're not able to amass a fortune while you sit in a Congress or a congressional seat or a senatorial seat. Bob Menendez might say something different as he counts his gold bars before his trial, which he may have to use to pay for his defense. I hope he had another hole where he got to keep some more of them. You know what? A guy like that, he had another hole. He had another hole where he was able to keep some of those gold bars. But these are the things that are universal. Greed is universal. Keeping my seat is universal. Legislation is not universal. These last 4 years have been the least active years congressionally in the history of the United States of America. Nobody's passing any legislation to do anything to actually give you anything off and everything. And these are Republicans that own this thing. You don't hear Republicans complain about other Republicans. You don't hear about that base that's driving in those trucks complaining about other Republicans. The reason why is because it's not about the policies. It's not about the $16 trillion that was lost from 2000 to 2025. It's about identity. It's about not seeing someone who doesn't look like you do well. The bottom line is my thought process on America is that they would love to see anyone in charge except for me. And that was the gift of Obama. It was the gift of Obama. Whether he did good or whether he did bad, for some people, the fact that he was there and he had that power in the first place, it just really killed him. Really killed him. So what I want to do with Born in Trouble this year is I'm going to cut through a lot of that bullshit. I'm going to be honest about it. I'm going to cut through that bullshit. I'm going to do a better job with my shows, honestly, like I was doing in the very beginning, because this is all nonsense. If I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down swinging. I'm going to go down swinging. So that's really what I wanted to riff about here today. They had a couple of other things that I was there. Oh yeah, Harrison Butker, that was the name of the guy. I'm sorry, it's guys like this that make me just go like, you know what? Nature is a hell of a thing. Nature doesn't make any mistakes. Okay. Some women are way more intelligent than you knuckle dragging motherfuckers. Some women are way more efficient than I will ever be in my life. They could be better at their jobs if allowed to be better at their jobs. If allowed to be better at their jobs. Some of them are meant to lead. I don't think that it's a gender thing. I really don't. I do actually, when I listen to feminists and I listen to them talk about how we're in such a patriarchal society and how things are, truth of the matter is that a large reason why we have this is because a large amount of women actually benefit from that system. Because some women are smart and some of y'all can't count to 3. And the question is, the difference is, the thing is you have to say what applies and what doesn't apply to you. And it's that simple. Like, look, I had to get a car repair done, something with my engine. And I'm a smart guy. But I'm smart enough to know that I got to call a mechanic to get it done. That's what makes me smart. I delegate to the right position. To delegate something just based upon someone's gender is it's just dumb. And sometimes people don't have to walk into the room with the understanding of what you have. That's the lazy part. We have to teach one another. We have to communicate with one another. And the sad thing is that, like, me at my advanced age, truth of the matter is, I'm not the one that's doing this teaching anymore. I'm not at your bar. I'm not at your club. I'm not trying to have your baby. I'm not trying to support your baby. I don't owe you anything. I owe my kids something. And the only thing that I really owe them is the benefit of my respect and my knowledge and my honesty. And that's really what I give them is my honesty. And they know, and even people who listen to this show know that I'm wrong. When I'm wrong, I'm going to admit that I'm wrong. I want to get out of that box right away. I'm not going to die on some fucking hill that is a wrong hill. I'm not going to be the people in my hometown that are complaining about changing the icon from the Indians to something different. That really doesn't make any fucking sense. That doesn't make any sense either. But let's just break down the moniker Indians, okay? Native Americans, not Indians. Indians live in India. They come from India. They practice a different religion or different religions depending on where you come from in India. I guess that's India and Pakistan. They used to be one country. Now it's Pakistan. Some are Islams. Some practice Islam. Some practice Hinduism. Some practice what is that? Zoroastrianism, whatever it is. There's a couple of different religions that they practice within that region. Those are Indians. So if you send your kids from an educational, just thinking about this, from an educational school district with such false information on their things, what was accepted 20 years ago because people just didn't know and everybody's walking around stupid, that's okay. But this new stuff, once you know, and once it's recognized, and it's like, oh my God, they're not Indian and everything. You got to change it. It doesn't change your memories of who you were. It just changes the facts. It's like we have to accept that shit changes. If you don't accept that things change, then you can't adapt. It's like you adapt to survive. But what we have is we have all these segments of people that are refusing to adapt because of their comfort. But when your comfort becomes discomfort, they want to complain about that too. Y'all got to stop being so fucking lazy. And that's really what it comes down to. You got to take some hits. Nobody wants to take some hits. And I understand everybody is taking hits. My generation, they're either doing really well or they're doing really poorly. Generation after that, they're doing them like much more shittier than the other past generations, the 40-year-olds and down have done, because of the fact that the economy changed, the world changed. We don't have industry where people work 30-year jobs, but we have to make smart decisions collectively. You can't let these like rich fuckers just take everything, which is going to bring me to my last topic. You see, look, 49 minutes and I barely even took a breath. It wasn't so bad. It really wasn't so bad. So I had a post on Facebook that got deleted this weekend, or actually it was like they gave me the opportunity, quote unquote, to delete it. And it was about inflation. And it noted that despite inflation, all of these corporations, and it lists the profits of these corporations, were doing just well. And they continued to contribute to the inflation of the world. And this was posted on the site, and it was knocked down with an information checkers, which is like the black mark. And when I read what they checked on the information, it was that they said that the numbers of the profit wasn't exactly what the corporations had reported as being their profits to the IRS. And that's the reason why the information was wrong. Big surprise there. You mean to tell me that a corporation that can afford to pay thousands of accountants and thousands of attorneys to file their taxes every year and keep their courses and find the loopholes, a corporation that pays lobbies to go in and write laws that will allows Congress to write tax loopholes into the tax code that they don't have, that the numbers would be off from what they say and everything, what they actually made. Truth of the matter is, it's some stuff that's gathered from here, there. Maybe it's not the entire profits, but they use that as a reason to say that this is not true about corporations contributing to inflation. And I call bullshit on that. And the reason why I call bullshit on that is because we've talked about it even on this show before. If you don't know, first time corporations are looking to save profits, they either cut jobs or they cut salaries. And sometimes they do both. If they don't grow in a quarter, they have all these different ways that always trickle down to the little guy. And if you think that a tech company having layoffs on the 20th of December, 5 days before Christmas, a insurance company having mass layoffs 5 days before Christmas, a company having a drive for jobs that they never actually hire people for. They have headhunters that are out there that are reporting that they're looking for people. They get them lined up for these jobs, and then at the end, they never actually get hired, but they still have the searches. This is the world in which you live. You live in a world of bullshit where all these things are happening. And to go back to this $16 trillion that was denied from the economy because you don't want corporations having competition from regular people, because that's what it comes down to. The beautiful thing about this country and the economy they have, they're skipping over all these different things for you guys. And one of the things about this economy is that anybody could wake up any day, come up with an idea, go to a bank, get a loan, put the idea through, and they can make themselves a success. And this was something at my age. If you read the book Think and Grow Rich, most of the people that actually achieved their success didn't achieve their success until their mid 40s to late 50s. You never hear that anymore. What you hear from kids is it's 20-year-old influencers. They're the ones that are making all the money. They're the ones that are going to Dubai. And God forbid, I listen. And listen, I'm all for change and God bless you and everything. If you're an influencer, though, get yourself an accountant. Get yourself an investment guy and don't spend all that money. Take that money and buy tangible things like real estate that they're trying to lock you out. Make that money actually work for you, because that could be gone in a second too. That's just the way it works. It's not meant for you to keep. One of the reasons why you don't know how many people I've spoken to when I was in my 30s that say, "Oh my God, I'm so happy I'm successful now and not in my 20s." Because I was in my 20s, I was a dumbass. I just blow that shit, and that's what a lot of these people expect from you. You go to the bar, you go out. You've got women that are saying like, "Okay, we want to rule the world, but we don't want to pay for dinner." So your husband is at dinner here. He needs to pay for all of us. We can run the world. Oh, yeah, hell yeah. Y'all have already figured it out. If somebody else is paying for your shit, then you're winning. You can run anything if you don't have to actually take responsibility for it and do it yourself. Makes perfect sense. Anyone that agrees with that and agrees that women should run the world simultaneously, you got to fucking miss me completely. Anyone that sits up here and is applauding me and saying that, man, you guys, you got it right. You put them women, you put them hoes in their place. You know what I'm saying? B, you got to miss me on that too. I don't know you. I don't know what you think. I want to get past what your body looks like. I want to get into your mind. I want to know what your thoughts are, how you're going to actually wake up and how you're going to apply these things that you have actually learned. That's when I'll be convinced whether or not you should lead me or whether you should not lead me. And until that time, I'm going to keep doing me. I feel like I am blessed to be in this real estate business. I deal with these people, but the bottom line is that most of the properties that I get those properties myself, and they can't cancel me. If they don't want my properties, that's fine. They just won't go to that community. They'll go to another community, and that's cool. So I feel somewhat insulated to a certain extent, but that's because of who I am. Y'all can't all do that. Everybody can't do that. That's just me. That's just my lane. And that's where I am. So listen, in closing, I'd like to thank anybody and everybody who's listening to the show today. And also check out the last episode that I had with Mr. Grant Lancaster. I'm actually going to put up a post there. I didn't actually put it on the podcast, but it is on YouTube. And one of the reasons why I put it on YouTube, it's a lost episode. So that's the first piece of trivia. That's the first official lost episode. But hey, listen, one in trouble. I'd like to say peace to everybody out there. My guys, Grant, Rob, Dean, um, of course, Reggie Reg, of course, Mr. Andrew Johnson, the 313 podcast. We actually have he's actually me, Grant and I were actually on his podcast last week talking about a very interesting family topic. Check out the 313 podcast. And of course, I forget chocolate Yodas. I think it has something to do with truth in it, but it chocolate Yoda. Listen, chocolate YODDAH, because companies are litigious, as he likes to say. Check out his podcast. And of course, check us out next week for our second episode of the fourth season. I hope you enjoyed listening to me just run off at the mouth for a little while. I hope I covered a lot of things. Listen, stop worrying about other people, and let's get it together. And listen, men and women, I think that y'all need to stop this fight. It's ridiculous. Africans and FBAs, whatever y'all want to call each other, y'all can cut it out too now. Y'all can stop too now. If you're African and you're coming here and you're talking about the plight and you're asking questions or you're trying to criticize Black Americans, you're no good to us. You're the same as a fucking white guy who lives in fucking Kansas talking about what's going on up in Harlem. Y'all don't know shit. If you want to be blissfully ignorant amongst your own. The same way I'm not going to speak about what's going on in Africa that made you jump on a plane or a boat and come to the United States and try to live a better life. I'll let you tell that story. You tell your story, I'll tell mine. Mine starts here, born in trouble, usually Tuesday nights. Peace.